Chapter 1. Hunter didn't feel like himself. A strange emotion came over him as he stood glued to the spot staring at Devon and Katy holding hands. Devon's hand passively clutching hers. Hunter's blue eyes glared into space, seeing and not seeing them. Everything appeared out of focus. Hunter's depthless eyes following their every move. The stark memories of her in his dreams after he had been kicked and beaten in a cave in Alaska gnawed at his insides. The only thing that kept him going were thoughts of seeing Katy and her wonderful smile. He just knew she would be waiting for him when he returned, and he would ask her to marry him, but instead, she had gone on with her life. Now he was thinking like a human, but he wasn't human anymore. He was a werewolf of the worst kind. The kind that could kill in cold blood. The kind that would kill his brother for one night to mate once more with the human he loved. As Katy came into focus, Hunter saw the image of himself with Katy, but it wasn't him, it was his twin brother Devon. He couldn't process the body language, they were close and their smiles were too truthful for Hunter. They were gazing at each other, as if they were in love. He sensed the undeniable attraction they had for each other. It was the same appeal he had for Katy when he first looked into her eyes. Devon was wearing the same look, and Hunter's mind told him that she was devoted to Devon, or that she was in love with him, and no longer did she have the same feelings for him that he had experienced so long ago. It felt like yesterday to Hunter, but it was indeed a long time ago, 2 years. It had been a harrowing 2 years to get home and discover that the person he wanted the most, the person he dreamed of each night as he lay nursing his wounds on a cold cave floor, was no longer his to dream of. He had been away too long, his mind was telling him. He could see a difference in Katy's face. She was wearing makeup. Her eyes hidden with dark mascara. When he first met her, her face was pale, except for the natural blush of her pink cheeks. Her hair was long then, and now it was short. She had worn a dress. This time she had on jeans. It wasn't because the season had changed when he first met her that she had worn a dress. Then it was spring, and now it was spring again. Hunter's senses were speaking to him. Devon and Katy had been intimate with each other in ways he had never experienced with her. Hunter could smell Katy's body as she moved in his direction to get a better look at him, as she dragged Devon with her, because she couldn't bear to release his hand. Knowing that Devon had been with Katy in the most intimate ways, Hunter pushed himself away from his mother, from Adrian's arms, and in a flash he had Devon by the shoulders, holding him off the floor. His arms were powerful. He could crush Devon if he wanted to. But where has this thought come from, he questioned. Jealousy is a human emotion, his mind told him. At first Devon thought this was a playful move, until Hunter tossed an unsuspecting and confused Devon across the room. Hunter stood over him, flashing his deadly teeth, his lips curling back growling. His steely blue eyes stalked their movements, his breathing rushing fast and hard into the air, his wide chest moving up and down, his nostrils flaring. Adrian was stunned, her eyes grew wide and she was shaking. She shouted at Hunter, "No. No. Don't do it. He's your brother." Hunter calmed at the voice of his mother, and he glanced down, tilting his head to one side at Devon, who appeared to be unconscious in the corner. "What's wrong with you, Hunter?" Katy said, her voice harsh. Her forehead furrowed, and her eyes glowing with disapproval as she rushed to Devon's side. Hunter didn't expect a cold reaction from Katy. He thought she would be there waiting for him, but instead she was angry and bewildered at his attack on Devon. Doesn't he know that Katy belongs to me? Hunter's mind was telling him. Doesn't she understand why I'm angry? Devon lay unresponsive in the corner of the foyer as Adrian knelt down to comfort him. Katy was standing over Devon. "Are you all right?" Katy said, her voice warm and caring. Hunter didn't know what to make of her concerns for Devon, but it was clear, because her bitterness was hurled at him, only him. Katy looked up at Hunter. "Why did you do that?" She placed Devon's head on her lap, after sitting in the corner, looking over to Adrian. Her eyes were begging Adrian to do something. Adrian hoped this was only a misunderstanding, and the situation would go no further. Still, Devon hadn't responded. His eyes were closed, but his heart was beating. Adrian checked his pulse and it was strong. Her heart rested inside her body once more. She took a long breath and closed her eyes. Adrian knew why Hunter had done what he had. And Drayton and Lysell knew as well, and that was why when Drayton and Lysell heard and saw the disturbance, they did nothing. Lysell said to Drayton, as they stood looking down from the second floor at the disruption Hunter had caused. "He'll get over it. They'll settle it and we'll have peace here once more. Leave them alone and they'll figure it out." Then Lysell hit Drayton on his left shoulder, and they walked away. Hunter paused a moment and settled himself, his breathing still ragged. He inspected his brother, then he looked at a mirror in the foyer and saw his image glaring back at him, his eyebrows making a deep V in his forehead. His eyes narrowed, peering at everyone in a threatening manner, everyone except his mother Adrian. With his mouth open, showing his deadly teeth, and seeing the fright in his mother's eyes, he stopped his threatening behavior. Hunter struggled with his instincts and nature. He was a different werewolf, so much so that he didn't recognize himself, and he didn't know what to do about it. It would take a lot to get over the idea that his brother had stolen his mate. The torment he had gone through had changed him into a fearless, possessive werewolf, and he couldn't turn back if he wanted to. It was as if he was a soldier who had returned from war. He had done too much and seen too much to ever be the same again. His only hope was to try to live with himself. He had gone down many roads, and they all had led him back home, and back to Katy. Hunter couldn't face another day without a touch of Katy's warm flesh. After nights of living in a cave and being shot and kicked and beaten, the thought of Katy had kept him whole and kept his humanity intact, but now this. His own brother had taken from him something more precious than his life, so his animalist instincts had kicked in, and he didn't know how to keep them at bay. The front door swung open with a bang, and there stood Wilder, breathing heavily, ready to attack. He had heard the commotion as he neared his ranch on his return home from the council meeting in Canada. Wilder watched as Devon struggled to sit up. Katy and Adrian stood watching at the door on hearing its explosive opening. Then Wilder spied Hunter and his body relaxed. Wilder's hand went to his mouth after seeing Hunter, his face showing quiet relief. "My son." He took one step in Hunter's direction, and then realized that it was Hunter who was the cause of Devon lying on the floor. "What is going on?" Wilder questioned, his voice firm. "Wilder," Adrian shouted and ran to him. "Your sons are—" "I know," Wilder said, his eyes wavering between Devon and Hunter. He walked to Hunter and hugged him, leaving Adrian to check on Devon. Wilder waved at Katy and Adrian to move away from Devon. Devon looked up at a stressed Katy and Adrian. "Leave us alone. We will sort this out," Wilder said to everyone. He handed Devon his hand, but Devon refused and stood on his own. Wilder turned to Hunter, his voice was warm when he said, "Are you hungry?" "No." "Are you tired?" "No," Hunter said, his penetrating glare on Devon, and Devon was looking up at Hunter with mixed feelings. His eyes asking why. Devon couldn't fathom what had gotten into Hunter, where he would use such brutality and force on him. Devon would never fight Hunter, but clearly this was not the same brother he had known 2 years ago. Could he have changed that much? They looked at each other, eye to eye. They were maternal twins. The only difference in them now was that Hunter's body was more muscular. They were the same height and their eyes were blue, but one had a look of peace and the other had a look of war. "I will not have my 2 sons in open battle, under my roof." "Then maybe one of us should leave," Hunter said. "Surely you two can come to some conclusion about the human," Wilder said. "It is about the girl." He knew. What else could cause 2 werewolf brothers to quarrel and attack each other? Hunter and Devon's eyes wavered back and forth at each other. "Father, her name is Katy," Devon said, looking over at Wilder as Wilder was standing in between his restless sons. "There can never be peace between us as long as he is with Katy," Hunter said. "She is my mate. I was with her first." His voice was low and husky. "As long as she agrees, we both can share her like father and our uncles did with mother," Devon said, his voice light and agreeable. Devon didn't understand Hunter's possessive nature. "I'm not like my father. I will not share the future mother of my pups," Hunter called out. His voice broke the silence in the house, and the sound of pups crying echoed downstairs. Everyone looked around and at each other. "That is the sound of our family and my pack, Hunter. It's time you understood that there are things far greater than all of us, and more important than when and who you mate with." Wilder's tone was commanding and impatient. Devon moved closer to Hunter. Hunter's hair stood tall on his arms. Wilder knew that this disagreement had to be settled, and settled soon. Wilder walked between two young werewolves who were ready to fight over one female. "Did you not hear what I said?" Wilder's eyes met Hunter's. "This can't go on. I need you to. It's a matter of life and death that we put this aside until later. We have more pressing and urgent problems than who fucked her first." Wilder's voice was forceful as he emphasized each word. Hunter raised an eyebrow at his father. "It's something that concerns all of us, and especially this pack. I don't give a fuck if the both of you impregnate her. What I care about is the survival of my family," Wilder said, his voice rising and falling, his tone distasteful. "But who dared call him on it? I have just come from a council meeting, and there appears to be a hostile response to werewolves and shifters of all kind in the human communities. There was so much I needed to explain to both of you as you were developing into yearlings, but that was taken away from me because of Bane kidnapping you and Adrian," Wilder said, looking at Hunter with the concern of a father. Hunter saw the worry in Wilder's eyes. He wanted to ask why didn't his father come for him, but he had too much respect. Hunter knew Wilder must have had a good reason. A concerned Devon looked around the room at Hunter and Wilder, then he questioned, "What is it, father?" Hunter's steely blue eyes focused on Wilder, but his mind was still on Katy and Devon. He stood, thinking of nothing of what Wilder had said about the council meeting. "Does it have anything to do with the large population of shifters coming into Samseville?" a troubled Devon asked. Devon had a right to be concerned. It was because of him that shifters had invaded their small town. Hunter knew nothing of what his father and Devon were talking about, and he didn't care. He had spent over a year in the wilds of Alaska, fighting to stay alive, and he just wanted to rest. All he wanted to hear was that Katy was his, and she had been waiting for him, longing for his return. "Precisely. They are coming here, because we are the only protection they have against the humans bent on destroying them. They have decimated wolves and werewolves in the forest in Alaska," Wilder added. "These humans know little of the other shifters. They are just concerned about werewolves, but the bear shifters think they will discover that they exist, and they will be the next target because they have to hibernate." That caught Hunter's attention. "What about Alaska?" Wilder turned to see Robert walking into the foyer. "We need to discuss this in the library." "Robert, I will need you too," Wilder said. A surprised Robert, on hearing Wilder, turned to Hunter. "That girl you brought here is very sick. She's not a werefemale. She's human." Wilder's blue eyes grew wide with alarm. "The human population outside of Samseville have declared war on shifters. Bringing her here is adding fuel to the fire. They already think we're kidnapping human women and raping and brainwashing them. Your grandmother spread that rumor when Adrian refused to go back with her. I hope you have a good explanation for this," Wilder said to Hunter. "She's only maybe 14 or 15. She has no family that I know of. What would you have me do? Leave her to die?" Wilder looked indifferent when Hunter raised the question. If it meant to protect his pack, then the answer would be clear to him as a leader. As a lone alpha wolf, Wilder had never been in love before, until he met Hunter's mother, Adrienne. He had allowed his brothers to share her and marry her, and she had all their pups to ward off those out to destroy him and his family. He did this to ensure that the Samsa name would flourish and there would be enough pups born in case of war. There was no doubt in Wilder's mind that war was coming. Chapter 2. Hunter, you brought a child here and she's human? Wilder questioned as he slid into a large leather chair, placed his hand to his face, and stared in Hunter's direction. The large stone fireplace heated the room and brought sweat to Wilder's face. It was either the room was too warm or he was extremely agitated. Resting his arm on the mantel at the far end of the fireplace and away from Wilder and Devon, Hunter adjusted a figure of an old man sitting by a tree, shook his head, and smiled thinly. No doubt it was bought by Adrienne, he thought. His slow response to Wilder proved that he had long passed being a pup and yearling. He raised his head with quiet confidence. Hunter glanced down at Wilder with a raised eyebrow. What would you have me do? I didn't think I should leave a helpless little girl in the woods. I thought Samsa's word and honor stood for something. Hunter caught a sharp glance at Devon. But I see it means nothing. That's enough, Hunter. There are more pressing matters than you falling in love with the first female you've had sex with. Hunter's eyes narrowed, then Wilder remembered Robert sitting next to him, his lips in a tight line and saying nothing, but simmering just the same as a frown line appeared in the middle of his forehead. I apologize, Robert. I didn't mean. I accept your apology, Robert said, his voice warm with a cool tone. Now can we get on with something more important, Wilder said, circling the room with the movement of his head and his predatory eyes landing on Hunter. It seems that there's a murderous gang of werewolves from Bane's pack. The now deceased Bane, I might add, Wilder said, without a hint of humor. It was the first time Hunter had heard Bane was dead, and no doubt at the hands of his father. Hunter took in a long, satisfied breath. That feeling coursed through his body, and finally he could rest and pursue the woman he longed for. Well, those rogue werewolves have slaughtered a number of humans, and the humans have declared war on our kind and all shifters. But all the shifters aren't responsible for what this band of killers have done, Devon protested. I've met a few in town and we get along fine. There's Dave, a bear shifter. He's the bouncer at the club where Katy and I hang out. Robert glanced over at Devon, raising a disapproving brow. Since Katy had turned 21 and had gone off to college and was of legal age, Robert was finding it hard to talk to her or offer advice as a big brother. Just because you've taken to hanging out at that bar in Samsaville and bringing Katy along with you. Robert's voice dropped. Doesn't mean I condone what you're doing or your relationship with my sister, Robert said to Devon in a harsh tone. Robert looked straight ahead, not meeting Devon or Hunter's eyes. He was in a room with 3 werewolves, and he knew their temperament, and although Wilder's mate was a human and the mother of Hunter and Devon, Robert was still considered an outsider. We're young, and we want to go dancing to let off a little steam and sometimes have a drink. Where am I to take her? To a casino in Lake Tahoe? Or would you prefer I take her on our jet to Las Vegas? Devon's eyes met Robert's, and Robert knew full well what he was talking about when he mentioned Las Vegas. He didn't want them to run off and get married without telling him. We don't have time to argue over irrelevant things. There are far-reaching problems concerning the lives of werewolves and humans. These rogue wolves from Bane's pack have killed so many humans in a small village that the humans began killing werewolves they knew and tolerated in their own communities. One example is the Honorable Dr. Redmond. Hunter's ears perked up. Dr. Redmond was Haley's father. Should he tell Wilder? Considering how opposed he had been to bringing Katy to their home, he decided maybe now wouldn't be a good idea. He didn't want to give Wilder one more reason to send Haley away. When the werewolves in the Americas became concerned over the death of a known werewolf doctor, whom the humans knew to be a good shifter, and the humans decided to kill him, the council became concerned for the future of our species. Werewolves as far as Russia attended the meeting. Devon listened, and from the look on his face, he wasn't at all unfamiliar with Samsaw's business. Devon was more familiar than Hunter. It was then Hunter realized how much he had missed, and how disconnected he had become from his family and pack. The council decided that the best thing to do is to track the werewolves down and send them to Russia. And that's why I need to talk to my sons and you, Robert. I informed the council that you have a serum for the werefemales in their pack, which will make them fertile. Hold on, Wilder, you shouldn't have given them hope. I don't know what the side effects are. It takes years before I can tell if there are problems. You gave it to Mina, Wilder insisted, turning to Robert. Robert's mouth opened, and he couldn't get his words out. He stirred in the large leather chair to the right of Wilder, facing Devon. Robert decided to answer Wilder. Mina was desperate to become pregnant, and to become a mother. I think she may have been suicidal. We were willing to take the chance, and besides, we knew that there could be problems with the pups. So far we haven't seen any. It's done. I needed something to give them, to keep the shifters thinking in a positive manner. They were discussing revenge killings, impregnating humans, and stealing their female children. For every werewolf death, kill 2 humans, some were saying. I reminded them that this is something we just don't do. It's against the laws my grandfather laid down. Laws to keep us civilized. What about you killing Bane? Wasn't he one of our kind? Hunter said, locking his gaze with Wilder's and watching his question move from Wilder to Devon, to Robert. Hunter had toyed with the idea of a revenge killing of Bane, but he realized that he should do whatever was necessary to avoid the taking of another human or werewolf's life. His thoughts, his teachings, and his experiences were contradictory. It was the human and werewolf in him that were fighting each other for control of his spirit. Wilder finally answered the question Hunter had asked. It's not the same thing, and if you don't know the difference, Hunter, then you have learned nothing in the time you have been away from us. Hunter's eyes dropped to the floor. His jaw jutted unnaturally as he tightened his teeth. Devon will have to hunt them down with the help of 2 more young werewolves. Once we catch them, they will have to go before the council, and if they are guilty, they will be banished, Wilder said, looking at an impassive Devon. What about me? Hunter said with a raised voice. You've been gone too long, and your mother misses you. I'm a full-grown werewolf. It's time I plan my life. Mother can't do that. She has all those pups to take care of, and Drayton's pup is not a yearling yet. Lysel's brood is wild and all but grown. Pretty soon they will leave and get their own packs. I should have the opportunity to do that as well, he said, pacing around the room with Devon and Wilder watching him, knowing that something had changed him, in what way they had yet to discover. Hunter stopped and pulled a book from the shelf. War and Peace. Maybe now I'll get the chance to read it, he thought. He glanced at it in his hand, and pushed it back in the slot with the other books. I have nothing to keep me here. I'm going with Devon. I'm not going to sit around and do nothing, waiting for Mother to accept that I'm grown, and she shouldn't worry about me. I'm a werewolf who needs a mate and a pack. I no longer need a mother. Devon was relieved to hear that Hunter wanted to go with him, because he wasn't excited about leaving Hunter behind to take back what Hunter said he had stolen from him, Katy's heart. Then you tell your mother. I can't take another accusatory glance at me, Wilder said to Hunter. Since when did our mother's eyes bother you? Devon said to Wilder with a snicker. It's not her eyes, we won't get into that, Wilder answered. If that's settled, then we need to discuss what to do about the young girl. She will have to be taken to a hospital. It would help if I knew something about her or her parents, Robert said, throwing a raised eyebrow at Hunter. She's Dr. Redmond's daughter. Hunter had forgotten that he needed to keep that a secret for now. For the very reason that Wilder would flip out over the news. What the fuck, Hunter? There's a bounty on the head of any werewolf found with her, Wilder said, jumping to his feet and stalking around the room with his hand under his chin, rubbing his newly formed beard. Dr. Redmond asked me to take her with me, because he knew he was going to die. I agreed, because that was the only way I could get home. The humans killed Redmond and blamed it on Shifters, a young shifter who looked like you and Devon. They said you kidnapped the child, Wilder said, pausing to look away. She's your responsibility. I have too much on my mind to deal with her. I have to find a way to get you out of this mess. Wilder tucked his hands in his jeans, with his back to everyone. He pushed the curtains away, looking out the window. How old is this child? You said something about 15. I think she could be 16. Wilder turned, shaking his head at Hunter. We need to know her exact age. She said something about a birthday soon. So she could be 17, Hunter added. Is she or isn't she? Wilder questioned. She could be older, he paused. Or younger? Hunter answered. Well, that's just fine. Wilder turned, facing Hunter. Does she know we're werewolves? No. I don't think so. She was delirious when I carried her here. So what is she doing with a werewolf like Dr. Redmond? Wilder asked, looking willfully at Hunter. Devon leaned in, curious to hear Hunter's answer, and Robert too preoccupied with his thoughts to care. Dr. Redmond confided in me that Haley had been adopted by them because they couldn't have a child, Hunter said. This sounds suspicious, Wilder said, pacing the length of the room. Why would they put a large reward out for her? And there's a bounty for the werewolf who has her. Do you see now, Hunter, that bringing her here has created a new set of problems for us? Then I'll leave. I'll move into an apartment in Samseville. Robert can take her to our hospital and say that she's his sister. Will she go along with it once she becomes conscious? Robert asked. If I ask her, she'll do it, Hunter said. She'll be conscious soon, and the quicker you do that, the faster we can get her to a hospital and get her treatment. It's not just pneumonia I'm worried about. You let her wear that thin dress. You don't know her, I couldn't make her do anything. Devon jumped up and marched around and stood in front of Hunter. Still don't know anything about women. And he winked, smiled, and walked to the door. You have to be firm with females, then make love to them every night to soften them up. That's enough, Devon, Wilder said. Hunter's steely eyes shot to Devon, who walked out of the room quickly. Let's go see Haley and talk to her, Hunter said to Robert. Are we finished, Father? For now. You have to get some rest. You look like hell, Wilder said to Hunter. Yes, I know. I'd better shower and shave before I go to the medical center. That's a good idea, Robert said. I don't want her getting worse from some germ she could catch from you. He turned promptly and left the library and walked out, heading to the hospital out back. Wilder walked to Hunter and held him tight and whispered in his ear, I'm glad you're home, Hunter. Hunter looked in his father's youthful, handsome face. He would look like him at full maturity. Hunter was almost the image of Wilder now, especially since he had been baptized by the fires of hell in Alaska. His look was far away. He thought all the time. He was sure of himself, and he didn't avoid his father's gaze. When Hunter passed Devon, he was standing at the foot of the stairs, whispering in Katy's ear. His nose on her neck, his hand noticeably on her behind. She had been smiling until she saw Hunter. He passed them going up the stairs and didn't look at them. His heart sank, but he tried to hold it together. He would show her that he didn't care. She wasn't going to get to him like he was some kind of lovesick puppy. After Hunter showered, shaved, and dressed in a pair of jeans and a new flannel shirt belonging to his father, he trotted to the stairs. When was it going to get warm? He needed a little sun after months of being frozen, because his skin had taken on a pale, sickly look. That pale look hid his handsomely sculpted, rugged face, with his fascinating blue eyes and strong features. Hunter needed that feeling of summer. Spring only made him yearn for Katy and for mating. As Hunter bounded down the stairs, Devon and Katy, still close together, whispering and laughing, turned to see him coming in their direction, his eyes now a clear blue. His youthful face had taken on the handsome ruggedness of the life he had experienced. In a few seconds, Katy saw the difference between the two werewolves. Hunter wore it in his eyes, the eyes and face of a man who had seen much and done a lot more. It was the face of a man that had made love to more than one woman, or had made love to a she-wolf, the kind of reckless, wild, abandoned fucking that animals and some men engaged in. Yet, Hunter wanted and desired Katy above all others. He now wore the face of a confident man, not the terrified teenage werewolf who had never had a sexual experience, the one she had first met, and the one she had first introduced to sex. The one she was now wishing would take her, and forget that she was fragile. Forget everything, and place her on all fours, and take her the way Devon was doing. That was the look she gave Hunter when she wet her lips with her tongue, and then bit her lips in the shadow of Devon standing near her. Katy was fickle and indecisive, and she wanted now what she couldn't have. She wanted Hunter.